Sonia and Robert, a married couple of 6 years, were eager for a peaceful weekend getaway with friends at a cozy cottage nestled in the woods. The promise of quiet days, starry nights, and the soothing sounds of nature offered the perfect escape from their busy lives. The cottage, surrounded by towering trees and a shimmering lake, seemed to embody tranquility. As they pulled up to the rustic cabin, Sonia felt an overwhelming sense of calm. This was the kind of retreat that they both needed, a time to relax, reconnect, and enjoy the simple pleasures of life. Little did they know this idyllic weekend would soon become anything but peaceful. Sonia and Robert arrived at the cottage, where their friends Mark, Jessica, and Lily were already waiting. The air was filled with laughter as hugs were exchanged, and the warmth of old friendships took over. The house, with its wooden beams and cozy fireplace, instantly made everyone feel at home. However, amidst the cheer, Sonia noticed an unsettling shift when Mark gave her a lingering glance. His smile, though warm, carried an undertone that made Sonia uneasy. Robert was completely oblivious, caught up in the joy of the reunion. The group quickly settled in, but Sonia couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, especially around Mark. The group began unpacking, arranging food and drinks for the evening. Casual conversations filled the air as everyone readied themselves for a relaxed evening. Sonia, however, couldn't help but feel the weight of Mark's presence nearby. As she sorted through her things, he lingered a little too close, making playful remarks that didn't sit well with her. At first, Sonia brushed it off, telling herself that it was nothing, just harmless banter. But the more Mark hovered around her, the more her discomfort grew. His flirtatious comments, although subtle, made Sonia question his intentions. She smiled politely, trying to dismiss the unease that crept in, but a growing sense of suspicion gnawed at her. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the group gathered around a large dinner table, plates piled high with food, glasses filled with wine, and the sound of clinking cutlery filled the air. Robert was in his element, enjoying the conversation and savoring the delicious meal. Sonia, on the other hand, felt an unshakable tension rising inside her. Mark's attention never wavered. His glances seemed to linger on her longer than necessary, and his jokes always seemed to have a hidden meaning. Sonia tried to divert her attention, engaging in lively discussions with Jessica and Lily, but it didn't take long before Mark's subtle flirtations pulled her back into an uncomfortable silence. Each laugh, each smile, felt like it carried more weight, and Sonia's discomfort deepened with every passing moment. As the night unfolded, the group moved outside to gather around a bonfire. The crackling flames cast a soft glow on their faces as intimate conversations began to flow. Mark's behavior became more obvious, his attention to Sonia bordering on invasive. The ease of the evening dissolved as Sonia felt the tension build between them. Mark's lingering looks and whispered comments made it clear that he wasn't interested in just being friends. Sonia tried to distance herself, moving to the far side of the fire, but Mark followed, his presence looming over her like a shadow. She felt trapped, unsure of how to handle the situation without causing a scene. The warmth of the fire did little to ease the chill creeping into her chest. As Sonia sat by the fire, her thoughts drifted back to her relationship with Robert. They had always been close, trusting, and deeply in love. From their first meeting to their wedding day, Sonia never imagined anything could come between them. Their connection had been solid, built on years of shared memories, laughter, and mutual respect. The thought of betrayal had never crossed her mind. She remembered their carefree days before the trip, when they were both so excited for this peaceful getaway. Now, as the evening dragged on, Sonia couldn't help but feel that something was shifting between them, even if Robert didn't seem to notice. She glanced at her husband, wondering if he would ever pick up on the subtle signs she saw. She never thought that a simple weekend away would lead to such an unraveling of trust. Mark suddenly suggested a walk by the lake, and although Sonia hesitated, she agreed, not wanting to cause tension in the group. As they strolled down the path toward the water, Sonia's unease grew. The peaceful sounds of the lake's ripples were now drowned out by the discomfort she felt with Mark's proximity. The cool night air did little to calm her nerves. Mark's advances were now blatant. His hand brushed hers repeatedly, his voice low and suggestive. Sonia's heart raced as she tried to remain calm, her mind struggling to figure out how to handle the situation. She didn't want to make a scene, but she couldn't deny the sense of violation creeping over her. Mark's persistence left Sonia feeling trapped, a prisoner to the situation. Without warning, Mark closed the gap between them and pressed his lips against hers. Sonia froze, her body stiff with shock and disgust. The kiss was sudden and forceful, completely unexpected. Her mind went blank, unable to process what had just happened. She was caught off guard, her body frozen in place, a mix of disbelief and revulsion flooding her. Just as she began to react, she heard footsteps approaching from behind. The sound of her husband's voice broke through the haze of confusion. Robert appeared from the shadows, his face immediately registering the tension between Sonia and Mark. His eyes narrowed as he took in the scene before him. "What the hell is going on here?" Robert demanded, his voice sharp with anger. Mark tried to dismiss the situation, offering weak excuses, but Robert wasn't having it. His anger flared, and the two men exchanged heated words. In a flash, Mark left, retreating into the darkness. The night was thick with tension, and although Mark's departure offered a temporary sense of relief, the damage had already been done. Sonia stood still, her heart pounding in her chest as Robert turned to her, his eyes full of concern. The air felt heavy as the group awkwardly reconvened. Sonia was in shock, her mind racing with what had just occurred. Robert attempted to comfort her, but words seemed insufficient. She felt distant, as though she was watching everything unfold from a distance. The warmth of the cottage and the flickering flames outside did little to ease her growing sense of betrayal. Sonia couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper had been broken. The weight of what had happened hung heavily between them, unspoken but palpable. Her trust in Mark had been shattered, but now, as she glanced at Robert, she wondered if her faith in him was also beginning to erode. The morning light filtered through the cottage windows, but Sonia woke with a heavy heart, the events of the previous night weighing on her mind. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the scene by the lake over and over again. Her trust in both Mark and Robert had been shattered in an instant, and she wasn't sure how to move forward. Robert seemed remorseful, but Sonia couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that had taken root in her heart. The peaceful getaway they had envisioned was now nothing more than a painful memory. She couldn't help but wonder if her marriage would ever be the same again. Feeling emotionally drained, Sonia made a decision. She couldn't stay at the cottage any longer, not with the weight of what had happened hanging over her. As she packed her things, she realized that the trip had shattered her sense of safety and trust. Both Mark and Robert had violated her emotional boundaries, leaving her feeling exposed and alone. She needed space, distance from the people who had once been a part of her world. The future of her relationship with Robert seemed uncertain, but she knew that she needed to leave. The peace she had once felt in their marriage was gone, and with it, the clarity she once had about what she wanted. Before she left, Sonia confronted Robert. Her voice trembled as she recounted the events by the lake, the kiss, Mark's behavior, and how everything had felt like a betrayal. Robert apologized, but his response didn't seem to capture the gravity of the situation. The conversation quickly escalated into a heated argument, with Sonia feeling more and more distant from the man she once trusted completely. She realized in that moment that their marriage was beyond repair. The love she had once felt for him had been overshadowed by feelings of hurt and mistrust. Despite the years they'd shared, Sonia knew that she couldn't continue in this relationship. Sonia grabbed her bag and made her way to the car, feeling the weight of the decision she had just made. Robert, still reeling from the confrontation, stayed behind, unable to fix the fractured weekend. As Sonia drove away from the cottage, she realized that the dream of a peaceful getaway had been shattered, leaving only the broken pieces of a once happy marriage. The road ahead was uncertain, but she was resolute. She couldn't go back to the life she once knew, not after everything that had happened. Back home, Sonia began to process the aftermath of the weekend. The hurt and confusion lingered, but so did the clarity of her decision. She couldn't remain in a marriage built on broken trust. She knew she needed to file for divorce and start over. Though the pain was still raw, Sonia understood that moving on was the only way to regain control of her life. The thought of a fresh start was daunting, but deep down, she knew it was the only way forward. She could no longer stay in a relationship that no longer served her well-being. A month had passed since the trip, and Sonia had already filed for divorce. She had moved to a new city, seeking a fresh start away from the memories that haunted her. Robert continued to reach out, but Sonia ignored his attempts, knowing that part of healing was letting go. As she settled into her new life, she felt a sense of peace slowly returning. Although the decision to leave had been one of the hardest things she'd ever done, Sonia knew it was the right one. She was finally free to begin building a new chapter in her life, one that was hers alone.